Hello, and welcome to Studio Biz and all that jazz. Today, I'm joined by the amazing Kristy Russell. Now, Kristy Russell specialises in early childhood. She's an educator, a musician, a music and mindset mentor, a speaker, a mama of two boys, and a wannabe play school presenter. I love it. We had an amazing chat today because she is really forward thinking when it comes to the mindset of delivering music to young people and the importance around that. And we go through some wonderful ideas and techniques to improve how you can deliver your programs and increase the engagement, the connection, and the response from your little people. I think that's really cool. We are talking, we cover different areas, and we talk about the application of some of these techniques that she uses with her students and beyond to various ages, really. And we do cover that. So it's even if you don't have preschool dance or that 0 to 5 years or 0 to 8 years age gap in your studio, I do think that this is still going to be a wonderful episode for you to listen into as we talk about mindset, breathing techniques and more. It's a great chat. I've really loved spending time with Kristy. Now, we actually met through a women's business networking event. You don't typically see many performing arts people in the space of business, even though there are many of us. You don't normally see them in business groups and networking groups and whatnot, in masterminds and so forth. So whenever I find one, I cling on for dear life. And I'm like, oh, let's be friends. So it's nice. It's nice to be surrounded by people who kind of get it, So that's been really special. Now, just a little bit of background here. I want to give you her bio, so bear with me because I think it's really important to get to know Kristy before we jump into this beautiful chat, which you're going to get heaps out of. So stick around. Now, Kristy studying musical. Oh, it's not musical. That's me. She's not the musical theatre lady. Okay. So studying classical piano lessons from the age of 5 and being awarded the prestigious Associate Diploma of Music at the age of 17, Kristy has always had a passion for music performance and a strong sense of self-discipline. Now, we know for anyone here listening that has a studio that is dance-based, movement-based, music-based, drama-based, that discipline is a part of that story, isn't it? So that's very interesting that she's been doing it from such a young age. But it wasn't until joining a choir at uni that she really discovered the joy of making music with others. So she was graduating with a behavioral science psychology degree in 1999. Kristy decided it was time to get amongst real life, inverted commas. For the next 4 years, she worked as a piano teacher and discovered a passion for early childhood education, studying and working in children's services. Okay, so at the age of 25, she headed to the UK. She worked as a nanny and did all the things that we do. She calls that part of her life her Hollywood movie, which is really quite interesting. She had a position in Switzerland and did lots of fun stuff there. We fast forward to now. She made the move to Tasmania in 2017, so Tasmania, Australia. With her husband and young children, Kristy decided to roll all of her experiences and skill sets into one and founded her own company, Movers and Shakers Music. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. Since then, Kristy has enjoyed amazing opportunities sharing the magic of music with hundreds of people through piano tuition, birth to 5 programs like Launch into Learning and Set Up for Success, community-based events, workshops, music and movement programs rather. Okay, so she's going to talk about her studies in neuromusical research, which is really interesting, by the way. I think that was quite an interesting take from today's episode. Now, Kristy believes that musical learning and mindset practices need to be embedded in all early childhood curriculums. And she is on a mission to educate the educators and support them to turn their knowledge into confident practice. So many good takeaways. All right, without further ado, let's kick off into the show with Kristy Russell. Here we go. Hello and welcome to Studio Biz and All That Jazz. I'm your performing arts business coach and host, Josephine Lancuba. This show is designed to bring you inspiration, information, and the instruments you need to create and grow the studio biz of your dreams. I will bring you a mix of solo episodes as well as interviews where I tap into the minds of industry experts. My career started as a performer over 2 decades ago. I later became a speaker, theatrical producer, and talent manager, as well as having a successful teaching career in singing, drama, and dance. 10 years into my professional journey, I became a mama of 2 and with a baby on my hip, opened up my very own performing arts studio. From hardship and humble beginnings to 4 studio locations and a multi-6-figure performing arts biz, I know how to attract students and keep them coming back for more. And in the show, I will share with you my experiences to help you thrive and fast-track your path to success. I know you have a spark inside of you with dreams and goals for the future. As your coach and mentor, I'm here to help you step into your limelight and be a cheerleader in your ear each and every week. So get ready to be entertained and inspired as we talk studio biz and all that jazz. Hello, we have the beautiful Kristy Russell, who is a musical mindset mentor and the founder of Movers and Shakers. Welcome to Studio Biz and All That Jazz. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Josephine. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you today.
Yes, and I know you're in a busy time at the moment, so this episode will come out after your big launch for your course, but we'll tap into that later as well, and you can tell us about that because I think there's a lot of value there for anyone that's interested in future when you bring out all your beautiful offerings throughout the year. So let's talk about firstly a little bit about what exactly it is that you do. So I know we've talked about being a mindset mentor and Movers and Shakers being predominantly that younger early learning music foundations, but I would love to know more. So tell us about what it is that you do in the world, Kristy.
Oh, well, how long have we got, Jo? Well, in a nutshell, because my history and my work experience and life experience has been quite a patchwork of events and training and jobs and things that have led me to where I am right now. So my company is called Movers and Shakers Music. Now that was really born about 6 years ago when we made the move to Tassie, to beautiful Tasmania with my family. And I found out that my qualifications and experience as a kindergarten teacher in Victoria were not recognised by the Tasmanian Teachers Board.
Wow.
So a bit of yes, that's a long story. You can read about it.
I didn't know that it wasn't national. I didn't realise that those qualifications didn't go across. That's really interesting.
Well, technically they do, but because there was a tiny little glitch in the system when I was on maternity leave with my own children, the Victorian teacher industry brought in a new regulation. I only had provisional registration because I wasn't working. Then when I went back to work with my children were a bit older, we were already living in Tassie. So it was basically null and void, which I got really, that was quite soul crushing because that's my life's work. That's why I wanted to get into early childhood teaching. I've had a background in birth to 5 space for over 20 years. I have a background in piano teaching. I'm a classically trained musician. I decided to go, well, you know what? I've got many skills. I've got great passion about this. I'm going to roll it all together in my own company. So that's when Movers and Shakers Music was born. And I started, reaching out to the community, doing music and movement programs and sessions for young children and their families, going into schools. And it's really grown from there, grown into workshops for early childhood educators and carers, me going and visiting centres to do music and movement programs, me running kindergarten programs for our local schools, all to do with music and movement for early learning. So really that birth to 5. So with that, I brought my own experiences, my tertiary training, a whole lot of stuff, and it just grew from there. I love doing it. I love engaging with the children, engaging with families, supporting them to bring in what makes sense for them, how, because every family is different, every parent, every teacher is different, but always children love magic. They really engage through music and movement. And gradually the mindset element has come in through my own personal transformation through chronic pain, healing myself through that, learning how to do simple things like breathing for mindfulness, breathing techniques to cope with stress, to cope with anxiety or performance anxiety. So all of those things sort of really roll together in my business, Movers and Shakers Music. So that's why I think the easiest way for me to describe myself is a music and mindset mentor, because I engage, with my piano students or my music students, and I engage with young children and families, schools, early learning centres through those modalities. And also recently I've started studying neuroscience, back to neuroscience, but neuromusical research. So they're really showing how musical training and musical learning can support particularly early childhood in terms of promoting literacy skills, getting them ready to read, promoting social skills, sharing, turn taking, all of those things that are really important to learn, in that birth to 5 space, but bringing music and mindfulness techniques through as a way of teaching them the best way possible, because that's the way we engage the whole brain and the whole body, the heart, the mind, the soul.
I love that. And, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of the people listening to this show are, performing arts studio owners or performing arts teachers. And in Australia specifically, we have a mindset around, when it comes to business growth, we talk a lot about get them in when they're young and then they grow with your studio, right? But the thing is, when you do offer these, mummy and me classes, regardless if it's movement, music, whatever, or when you go into that preschool environment, yes, it's great for the business, but there is a lot that is what you talk about beneficial for the child. So yes, great for business, but we must also remember the development side for this age group and how important that is. So you talk about that it is important. You say, hey, this is really important for kids, but why exactly? I understand some of the elements you said, but why do they need these things? Why is it important for little people to learn music or to have this sort of, knowledge at such a young age?
That's such a great question, Jo. And it really comes back to that element of the neuroscience behind it. So if you think about our brain functioning and our development, the space between birth to 5, well, typically between birth to 8, but let's focus on the birth to 5 for the moment. This is when our brains are developing at the most crucial part of our whole lifespan. Our brains are sponges. We are developing all the architectural foundations for later learning, for lifelong learning. So when we think about the things that we need for a healthy brain and healthy functioning, healthy hearts and bodies and minds, they are things like connection, so bonding, so that you get through singing to your child. Even if you don't feel like you can sing, you can still, tap into that parentese, that speech where you're using your voice softly, you're creating a safe connection with your child or with the children that you're working with. That's instantly creating connection. So our brains love that. They really thrive on that. When we're feeling safe and connected, our cortisol levels, our adrenaline levels are very low, our hearts are happy, our feel-good hormones are circulating around. So that's really important structurally and, mentally and emotionally. When we talk about physical development, we talk about coordination and, even just something as simple as a beat keeping exercise. That's a really hard thing for a 2 and a 3-year-old to learn. Once they get around 3 and 4, it's a little bit easier to clap in time or to, you think about how children learn to jump. A 2-year-old is only just learning to coordinate those 2 feet at the same time, and we call it a jump. Now, as adults, we think, oh, it's just a jump. But for young children, this is a massive step in learning. And it means that what we're seeing on the outside, what we as adults and teachers observe, is basically what's happening on the inside of their brain. So their connections are happening between all the different parts of their brain, their language centers, their physical motor skills, their cognition, their memory, their ability to, to communicate. So all of these skills are so important between birth and 5, and music and mindfulness techniques, so coming back to the breathing, they are just lapping them up at this
Mm.
age, and that's children learn through play. Music and movement, it's playful, it's fun, it's engaging all of our systems.
Mm. And it's good too, because I think sometimes people forget about the musicality sense, even for a dancer. Like you talk about, clapping in time, things like that. These are really simple exercises, and singing, right?
Yeah.
Being therapeutic. And little ones, they can sing along in the class, even with the movement class, singing along, clapping along, getting that rhythmic ability, I think is really key as well to their development over time. So yeah, I do love that. And I think it is really important. I mean, I know my daughter, for example, she started classes very little, probably about 18 months. I had my son in from 2, but he only did it for a year. Now he's like, no, I don't want. Can't make me,
Too
Mum.
cool for school, Mum.
I know, but we sing at home, so it's a bit different. So, like, I'll just put music on. They'll sing and dance. I caught them just yesterday, actually. My daughter was on the microphone, just doing like karaoke at home stuff, and my son was like dancing and really rocking it out to her singing. And I just thought, oh, that's really sweet. But it's like you said, such beautiful connection. And I think that's a part of their bonding story as well. So, having music is so beautiful for that. Were you a performer yourself, or were you always an educator? How did it become that education was the forefront? Did you ever actually, work as an artist, or was it always that education piece?
That's an interesting question. When you say performer, I started classical piano training when I was 5, and as part of that, I wanted to play in Eisteddfods, in our local Eisteddfods.
Yeah.
So performing from about the age of 6, yes. As an adult, I didn't really do. I had a lot of. We did some paid gigs. I used to live overseas in Switzerland for 4 years, and during that time, I really tapped into. I got very friendly with a group of musicians. They had a music shop. I used to sing backing vocals for their band, and then we used to sort of do summer festivals and things, doing Bob Marley and reggae, sort of covers and
Yeah.
things like that. And it was wonderful. And I sort of helped them do a little bit of their managing gigs and things like that. So in terms of that performance, I never really sort of pursued it as a career. It was always an extra. And then, there's been times where I've, gone into restaurants and things, and I've been, doing the piano playing in the background. So yes, I have performed in some ways for like that monetary return.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know, it was always more of a hobby. And now once a month, my husband and I, because he's from Ireland, we meet with a lot of local musicians, and we do a lot of performances. But again, they're all for free, because we just we love that gathering, traditional Irish music. You gather together, you have a trad
Yeah.
set, so there's a lot of things that I'm doing that's just an extension of my hobby, and I
And
love.
nurturing the soul as well.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
What about in relation to children and performance? Do you think that performance is a good thing for kids to be taking on, or in relation
I
to their
do.
like we talk about confidence building through performance? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think, and you would probably agree with me, and I heard you chat about this with Mel Lathoris. We have a different generation of students coming in, and we need to be able to connect with them and offer them the experiences that we know will help them, but to aim at what their interest is. None of my students like doing exams anymore, right? Which I get a little bit sad, because I think it's really good to have a goal to
Yeah.
work towards. So instead of going, well, that's really frustrating, I just do pretend exams with them. I still teach them the theory. I still teach them the oral training and the singing and, the sight reading. But then we just do an in-house kind of,
Like
performance.
a
And
mock
yeah, a
exam.
mock one. And I do, when I had a lot of students, I don't have a lot of students at the moment because I've got 2 other jobs that I do. But, when I had, 15 or 16 private students, piano students and ukulele and singing, we would have our little gathering at the end of the year or halfway through the term, where they would get up and perform in front of just their families. And some of them thrive on that, and that's great. Some of them are absolutely frozen in fear, and I'm so proud to be able to support those students. Not one of them has said that I can't do it. They are absolutely panicking, and we work through the mindful techniques, we work through the breathing, because I always bring that into the elements of my teaching,
Mm.
and they get on stage, and afterwards they're like, "Oh my God, I did it." So that's so important. So yes, I believe that it's so important. And even when I was a kindergarten teacher and we do our end of year performance or just a little in-house performance, there's always going to be those children that are absolutely, fear struck, and their bodies will just shut down. That's when we use those mindfulness techniques that we've worked through as part of their lessons as well, performance
Can you
anxiety.
talk us through a couple of suggestions for mindfulness techniques? Because I think
Yes.
as studio owners or teachers, we've all experienced those moments where our students do freeze. I have had that incident only a couple, honestly, in the last decade. I think it's happened twice where I've had kids backstage that just refuse to go on stage. And
And you
that's
you
it.
can't push them. No, you don't want to push them, but you need to be able to try. So the easiest thing I do is breath work. And I've actually got one of my free resources that I do probably every couple of months. I put out something new. So you can find that on my website. It's
We can pop a link as well in
yeah,
the show notes for everyone.
it's just a breathing guide. It's 5 of my top tips, but the trick is, don't do it when you need it. Don't teach them when you're in the middle of a panic attack and you
Yeah.
need.
Okay.
Bring them in as an element of your routine already. So even if you're starting, you know, with your warm up, for example. So for me, I can, I'm physically seeing the students sit at the piano, and what we do is, before we race into a song, okay, just take a moment, just take 10 seconds just to focus on your breath, and make sure that you're talking about breathing through your nose first. So you just breathe like you're smelling something through your nose, and breathing out as if you're blowing through a straw. Now, the age of the children, you can have fun with this. You can do bee breathing because they love play. You can do snake breathing, breathe in through your nose, breathe out, make a noise like a bee. Bzzz. So the actual art of breathing out, like making a noise, gives you that biofeedback as well. Snake breathing is the same. Breathe in through your nose. Let's breathe out like a snake.
Mm.
See how long you can do it. And the younger the children, the more fun you can have with it. Use props, use it as part of your gathering, your routine, because I would probably assume that you would gather together first, maybe have a little bit of chat about what you're going to do, have a little warm up. Use
Yeah.
it then, and use it if you need it throughout, and use it at the end as well. So you're really creating a ritual around breath work, and a ritual around respecting and attuning to what's going on in your body physically, because breath work gives us that element of attaching it to a body part, attaching it to your nose. Some people talk about mindfulness, looking into a flame or whatever, but the easiest way we can tap into our mindfulness is that if there's a physical element attached to it. So this time it's the nose and the mouth.
Do you struggle retaining your students when it comes to the end of your season or term? Would you like to know the 10 essential points for retaining your students between enrolment seasons? Well, I've got the solution for you. Introducing my Student Re-enrollment and Retention Checklist. These are 10 key points to help you retain your students, and it's yours for free. Simply head to the show notes or josephinelancuba.com/checklist1. Now back to the show. I like that a lot. I like that you've also made it a bit fun when you talk about animals and things like that. So let's say that happens, right? So you've now built this up. You're in a situation, you've been working on this in your classroom, okay? So, I love that you used the word ritual. I think that's really cool, because I've used breath work in the beginning, but I've never thought to do it at the end. I think that's actually a nice closer to finish. So I do love that. And then the child student is backstage and the moment's happening.
Yep. Okay. So
What
then
can we do?
you tap into your ritual, say, remember how we do this every session. Okay. Remember how we do this as a start. And we're going to breathe in, and we're going to feel what's happening. If they're older students, that's when you can sort of bring their attention to what else they're feeling. Let's think about your hands. Are they feeling a little bit clammy? Okay, well, remember, our breath work is going to help calm our nerves. It's going to help our body find a place of stillness. It's going to help bring our energy to where we need to do it. And with also something that, sorry, I'm backpedaling a little bit, but
Like it, don't
when
worry.
when you're doing this with your the little bit older kids, so I would say sort of 7, 8 onwards, they have a little bit more capacity to understand this. The fact that when your energy and your emotions are really high, you need to bring them a little bit back down so that you have the confidence to keep going with what you need to do, so that your hands are still enough to play, so that your body is coordinated enough to make those dance moves, okay? Because if our energy is too high, we're going to be like a Ferrari on a racetrack. We're going to be crashing into bring that element of fun and the visuals with it. So when you're backstage, you should be at a time, if you've used that breath work and the ritual to go with it, you should be at a time where the brain is already trained, already in the space, so that you can just
It's
focus
like
on.
muscle memory, isn't it?
It is exactly like muscle memory, Jo. Thank you very much for making that clarity, because I can tend to go off on a track.
I like it. No, that's right. Because I mean, especially with dancers, muscle memory is so important. So we're really talking about the same concept here, but in a sense of being calm, basically gathering ourselves together and collecting ourselves. I think it's interesting because I think obviously in a music and a vocal studio sense and a drama sense, studios are incorporating breath work. Well, they hopefully are incorporating breath work into the practice. I love that you've talked about it as a regular ritual. I think that's something people may not consider. It's not just an exercise, it's a ritual, and that's really key. But I actually think that more dance studios, because like you said, it can be 10 seconds, it can be 30 seconds. I actually think that's beautiful, because I know that most dance studios do not incorporate breathwork into a class. What a simple thing to add as part of the warm-up and cool-down routine or ritual. So yeah, that's beautiful, because it's not just about the movement or the performance. It's about the confidence, the calm, the centering. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
And I think also it's about connection. And this is something that I talk a lot about in my music and mindset course as well. If we aren't connected and in tune with ourselves, we're going to really struggle to connect and be in tune with others. And that's part of my personal transformation. I actually didn't feel connected to myself until I was 30. I'm 45 now. And I remember the day that I felt connected to myself. I was in St. Kilda, living in St. Kilda. I'd been overseas for a long time. I'd come back. I was a bit lost. I'd been, I'd never really connected with myself and spent time with myself. I'd always been, flitting off here and flitting off there. And I did a lot of personal transformation work. And I remember being at this massive big crossroads in St. Kilda, and it was a sunny day, and I felt this literal kind of light that came. It sounds really weird, but it came from above and it went through my body, and I went, "Oh my God, is that what joy feels like?" Like I remember smiling and thinking, I'd been happy before, but I just, from that moment on, I felt absolutely connected to me and my spirituality. And then everything changed after that. I met my husband. I went back to uni and did my graduate diploma in early childhood teaching. I became a kindergarten teacher. I felt connected to the children that I was working with. It wasn't just me as an onlooker in life. I was involved in life. It was so beautiful, Jo. And this is the, fast forwarding 15 years when I'm creating this course, but I think this is actually the key: connection and tuning into yourself through things like breathwork, paying attention to what's happening in your body and mind, and then, having the resources and the resilience to be able to cope with whatever comes at you, or whatever challenge you're facing, or to celebrate. It's not just about I don't want to say negative, but not just about the challenges. It's about embracing the great times and the celebratory times and the small wins. You know, you and I were talking about it before we pressed record, celebrating those small wins in the bigger
Totally.
picture, you know.
Yeah.
So connecting as dancers, as artists, as musicians, as anyone in the creative field or anyone working with people, connection is so important. And it, you know, if we can connect with ourselves, everything else will actually roll on and make more meaning in our lives, you know.
Yeah. And look, the 20s is a really tumultuous time, especially as like if you're a performing artist. Oh my God, the 20s, you think you got to make it by 30 or you're out, you know, like it's so ridiculous.
Then 30 comes, you're like, oh, whoops.
That's it. I actually, going back to what we were talking about before we hit record, because
Yeah.
there was a few things in there, and I wrote down a little note to self to bring it up, and that was because you're talking about connecting to yourself, and that's so important. I agree with that, and I feel like now that I'm 40, I'm actually so much more comfortable in my own skin. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But we talked about comparisonitis, right? So
Yes.
comparing ourselves to others. A little bit off track, but I actually think this is really important because in the arts we see it a lot. Not just as our students are comparing themselves to others in the space, they're comparing themselves to what they see online. We're comparing ourselves as businesses to other, like the studio next door has 100 more students than me, and what am I? And we can get really hyper focused in comparisonitis. What's your take on that from a business perspective, but then also from a student protection perspective?
Yeah, that's such a deep question and a whole topic to think about, but it is really important to talk about it because I think, let me gather my thoughts and see where I can go with this, but I think it all comes back to our own mindset, whether we are having more of a fixed mindset, oh, this is the way that this has always been done and I'm not going to do it differently and this and that. And if you do have that more of a mindset, then you will look at people as competition. You will look at them as they're doing better than me or I'm doing better than them. You will have that kind of hierarchical, you know, I don't really know the words to explain it, but the way that you engage with them with those kind of experiences and the things that come in your path won't help you grow and learn. So when you have a growth mindset, when you're accepting of all the challenges that you have, all the things that you've done, you know, respecting your own voice, I think when you're more likely to have experiences that are authentic and that don't matter so much on the outcome, but the journey. And I know that's a little bit of I'm not being very clear in what I'm talking about,
No,
but
I totally hear what you're saying. I think that's very important to shift from focusing on, you know, comparing yourself to others. And I get what you mean by sort of falling into that negative trap, then going to versus a growth mindset where, you know, sort of we can't look at others, and especially not knowing their background. So sometimes we're comparing ourselves today to someone who's been doing it for 20 years, or maybe, you know, there are studio owners out there that inherit businesses from their family, and there's all different things going. And even if you're exactly the same starting point, there are circumstances, right? Like we were talking about circumstances before we hit record. I'm like, I've got 2 young kids. I'm running, you know, 4 studio business locations. I'm doing a coaching business, and, you know, and it can feel like you don't want to make it an excuse, but it feels hard, right? What about students? That's the thing. So how do we combat that in the classroom?
Exactly. And that is the question. Like we can talk and be philosophical about it, but how do we actually address that? Because we are up against, and when I say up against, you know, we do have such an influence with social media and what we see with the voice. And I just interviewed Dr. Anita Collins on my podcast recently, and we were talking about the same thing. I asked her, where did she feel like these myths that a musical person is someone that sings in tune? or plays an instrument, where are these myths coming from? And, you know, her take on it is something that I believe as well. It's really the social media, that shows like The Voice, and, you know, they're great, they're entertainment, but they're also reality TV. They've also, their intention behind it is to, you know, put up in big lights this farmer who's never really sung before, and now, you know, whatever.
Now he's a rock
It's
star.
really, it's good.
I've
Like,
got to tell you, we love The Voice. I just so you know,
The
I love
Voice
The Voice,
too. I
and
don't
I'm
like the
hanging
drama
out
that
for the
goes with it.
final. This was recorded before the final, by the way.
Oh my goodness.
No,
But
but
I
I
do,
do hear
no,
you
I
in that.
do. There's definitely an element that we need those things. We need those different perspectives. We need lots of different perspectives of what musicality is, what success looks like. But at the end of the day, we need to be starting early. And this comes right back to your initial question. Why do we have to start so early? What is important about birth to 5? We need to start having these conversations and instilling this love of and pride in self. And when I say pride, I'm not talking about ego. I'm talking about a human compassion for self and other. Okay. I'm talking about building confident, self-resilient young children, so that as they grow, they are going to grow into more confident, more self-resilient, more community-minded. They will have the resilience, they will have, you know, the breathing techniques, they will have a love of community, a respect of valuing their fellow friends, their colleagues. They'll, you know, as they grow older, they'll be their colleagues. Valuing strangers, you know, you don't have to be friends with everybody, but we need to be able to practice turn taking and
Yeah.
sharing. All of these things are important at the early years. So you know, it's a big thing when you haven't had that early years focus, and you're talking about, you know, 12 and 13-year-olds that may not have had things like that. And how do we shift their mindset? How do we support them to not get that oh my god, they're doing better than I am, or, you know,
Oh,
that.
and by the way, this is not just happening in 12 and 13, yes, but
Yes.
I'm seeing this even on, and this is why I sometimes, and then this is not a judgment on anyone that uses YouTube as a tool and
Yep.
iPads and things,
Yep.
but I do have some rules around how much consumption is happening in those spaces, because even YouTube Kids, I've
Yep.
got to tell you, I know they filter the content so it's not seen as perceived as dangerous or whatever, but there is some stuff on there that's a little bit, you know, like even gymnastics shows where girls are talking about, for example, I saw my daughter watching this show. It was on Disney, and they were talking about their weight and how it was meant to be body positive. It was meant to be saying, oh, I don't feel good because of my weight and blah, blah. And then they're trying to say, no, you're beautiful. And blah. But I thought, my daughter's not even thinking about that. So now we're introducing
Yes.
a concept that she hadn't even. So I just said, oh, look, honey, this show's too mature for you, sweetheart. I don't think it's the right fit. And you can't watch it. Now, some people would think that's a bit hardcore, but I don't, why does she need
I'm
to even
with you.
have this conversation?
I'm that parent and that educator that really is a bit strict about what my kids are viewing and what they're tapping into, and not because I'm a control freak, and it's not
No.
because I want to protect them from everything bad. You know, of course we want to protect them, but I just think there's so much more that we can learn when we engage with real life humans, when we engage in nature, when we can engage in a creative expression like dance, like music and movement, you know, everything. When we engage with real life things, we're building our connection, you know. And I know that COVID has had a lot of impact mentally on many people, where, you know, we've got this global trauma from it. You know, I understand that. We've also got a lot of global resilience from it, and connection as well. So there's really two sides of the coin there. But again, it all comes back to that connectivity. And here's another little neuroscience fact from you. When children are engaging with humans, they're building those empathy and social skills. And you think way back to babies as well. When they're engaging, they're looking at your eyes, they're looking at your face, they're reading your expressions. If you're putting a screen in front of them, they are not getting any of that. They are not getting anything from a cartoon. They're not getting anything from, you know, need your voice to speak to them. They need, however it sounds, You know, if you're judging yourself as a singer, they're not judging you. They just want to connect with you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I
So,
love that.
mm,
Let's talk about that actually. Let's just move quickly into this course that you have because
yes.
you're talking about, I assume, some of the principles of the course. You tell me about it. Go. Tell me, what is
Yeah.
this course and
So
what exactly
basically,
is it about and who's it for?
yeah, so the music and mindset course, it's really the only online comprehensive course that I've found of this kind. So it's basically bringing it's an 8 modules. So each week I give you a module, say for example, the first one's on music and the brain. So I give you a little bit of the science behind why music is so wonderful for our brain. And then I give you an action step to take into your workplace if you're already working in an early learning center, or if you're a homeschooler, if you're a parent, you know, it
Would
is
we
aimed.
apply this to a studio environment?
Um, if you were well, because it brings everything's based around the early years learning framework, so
Mm.
our Australian curriculum. And so if that's something that you are interested in and that you would like that sort of that link to a curriculum, sure, you know, it really is working on that birth to 5. So
Yeah.
the modules are all have links back to that. So there's a module on your mindset. So we do talk about mindfulness, breathing techniques. Again, the neuroscience. I'm always bringing back that little bit of evidence-based research to show you the why, or to give you the why behind it, and then I give you the practice to give you that action step to practice it actually in your workplace or at home. Because I think what we're lacking in many of the learning modules that we have, especially in early childhood, is how to bring our theory into practice, how to bridge that gap. Now, I have to say to you, I'm very, very, I'm really passionate about this because do you know in any early childhood training, they don't have anything like this anymore. No music and movement training whatsoever. There's a tiny little element in one of the diploma. I have friends and colleagues that actually teach Cert 3, diploma qualified, and bachelor training. There's hardly anything to do with music and mindfulness. Yet the early years learning framework has just been updated after 10 years, and the whole vision has changed. There's definitely more about Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander perspectives, but they're starting to bring more about children's mental health and well-being. Now, if we're creating a whole curriculum and a national standards and framework of learning, yet we're not bringing it into the actual training that our educators are getting, I mean, what is going on? Like, I'm
Yeah,
just
there's a
trying to get
disconnect
on my
for
high
sure.
horse.
There's
So I'm
definitely a
actually,
disconnect.
yeah, and I'm actually in the process of trying to find out how can I get my course recognized by RTOs and RTAs, because we need it. Children learn best through play, through music and movement, and you know those modalities. We need to bring it in, and it's not my course not only benefits the educators that are studying this course, the knock-on effect to the children, and then to the children's families and their communities. You know, that's where it comes from. You know.
Yeah, I love that. So, before we wrap up today, I have a couple of questions that I like to finish on. And I think, this is really great for the audience to get to know you a little bit better and maybe reflect on their own selves. But what does success mean to you? What does it look like to you?
Oh gosh, success means to me that I wake up in the morning and I'm excited about the day, and I go to bed at night and I'm really happy with what I've achieved, whether it's to do with my work, my relationship with my kids and my family, my friends. It just means that I have an inner peace and I'm confident that I've done my best, and no matter what the outcome was, I've actually feel like it's made a connection and made, put a smile on somebody else's face as well. So that's me in a nutshell, really.
I love that. And who or what inspires you?
Oh my gosh, nature, Mother Nature. That's why
Yeah.
we live in the middle of nowhere in Tassie.
For anyone listening, Tasmania is the
Oh,
very bottom little piece, the bottom
oh.
island of Australia. That's
And
there we
we
go.
had this vision to get our hobby farm, and we've just got it, and it's so beautiful. But look, I find inspiration in the smallest things and the biggest things, but it really is to do with connections, connections with people, having fun giggle moments with my kids, or going outside and just, when the sun shines or you see a rainbow. Or yeah, I'm a real kid at heart, and I think as adults it's hard to sometimes tap into that, but we need it.
Yeah, nature definitely helps. What's a hobby farm? You said you have a hobby farm.
Yeah, it's not really a hobby, it's full time. Well, we have
What is it? Like, what is it?
so we have 47 acres and we run some cattle, we run some sheep, we've got
Wow.
lots of chooks, we have a beautiful
That's
Maremma
not a
dog.
hobby. Sorry.
No, it's not. No, especially when my husband works full time and I'm 3 days a week and then my business. But no, we have a
I'm a
beautiful.
city person. That sounds like my worst nightmare. No.
Well, yours is my worst nightmare. I love visiting cities, but it's too much for me. Too much noise, too much,
Yeah,
I need the trees.
yeah, no. And I've always lived city based, but then I moved towards the beaches. So now I do feel actually really lovely. I still like to be in walking distance to the shops or something.
Yeah.
I need to be
Yep.
in industrial community. I feel like when we moved actually out here, I'm sorry everyone, I digress, but when we moved out here, Northern Beaches way, initially we were we were renting a place before we sort of bought in the area just to scope it out a bit, and there was a house that we rented and it was a little bit bush-like for me, and there was like the first day I remember we moved in, there was a bush turkey, I think that's what we call them, bush turkey in our front yard, and I went, oh my God, what is this? And then we opened up our umbrella out the front and a bloody blue-tongued lizard fell out. And we're like,
That's gorgeous. See,
I know, it took us a while, and there were like caterpillars all over the fence, and I just said to my husband, I said, where the heck are we right now?
You would freak out here, seriously. But I can tell, like, I love hearing people because, everybody's
Now
so
I love it. P.S. Now I appreciate it very much.
good. Everybody has a different what gives them joy and
Totally.
if you're, you can't judge people. You just gotta see the connections and what works for them. And it might not work for you, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong or that they're any different, it's just
Yeah, I love that. Now, so tell me, Kristy, what's next? Now, I know you're in the middle of the launch for your course. However, we know that that's going to wrap by the time this airs, but that's okay. What's on the pipeline for you?
Yeah, so the next one I really want to establish myself, especially in our community here in Tasmania. I want to do more in-service workshops and really get early learning services to see me in action, to hear me talking, to let me help you understand why music and mindset is so important. Let me work with you to not give you any extra work, but to actually help you make your routines, your staffing, your relationship with the children's, make them actually thrive instead of just plodding along. Really want to boost morale and spread a bit of magic and music.
Yeah, and your work actually helps studio owners in the long run, because if it was more embedded into the curriculum, people would be more interested in having it as an extracurricular activity too, which is also great for them.
Exactly. It really is that knock-on effect. So we start early and everybody in the future benefits from that. So that's really what I want to do. And then I'm going to be a bit of a dog with a bone, trying to get this course recognized with registered training, because I just, it's the community groups that I'm on, the observations I'm seeing, the feedback I'm getting, we need to get this into our training packages. We really do. It's so crucial.
Yeah, I love that. Now, you mentioned, what was that free resource that we're going to have a link for everyone in the show notes?
Yeah, that one's my 5 top tips to breathing. So really it is for parents, educators, anybody who wants some really quick and easy, useful breathing techniques for regulation to help you calm down, for performance anxiety. Really easy to learn. So you can find that on my website. You'll put the link down below. And where can people find you online? Yes, so I'm Movers and Shakers Music. It's a bit of a mouthful, but the Movers has 2 O's because we're in dairy country. Moo. And my little cow and a pig.
Love it. And we'll pop a link to your website in the show notes as well. All right. Thank you so much, Kristy, for today. I really appreciate you being on the show. It's been awesome.
Thank you. I've loved having a chat, Jo. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
This episode was brought to you by my signature group coaching program, Studio Biz Success.
an amazing and accessible online educational platform for performing arts studio owners designed to help you grow your business with confidence and get your results. Check it out at josephinelancuba.com along with other great industry resources to help you leap into the studio biz you deserve. If you love this episode, be sure to share it with your friends. You can tag me on social media at Josephine Lancuba and give it a review. Your support helps the show to grow so I can continue to provide you with useful, informative content. I'm Josephine Lancuba, your biggest cheerleader. Thanks for listening and shine bright.